Besieged City aka Way I Sing is a harsh no punches pull 2008 Chinese movie about kids falling into the trap about gangs and violence. We start off with a couple of brothers who get bullied relentlessly at school only to return home to an uncaring mother and a bully of a father. They leave and hit the streets. Join a type of gang with kids having similar experiences. Things of course get complicated when drugs get involved and rival gangs and hierarchies show the true nature of the people involved. There's a lot of plot lines in this movie, so much so it sometimes gets hard to follow. I'm not going to explain every single one of them here, but it suffices to say that Besieged City is a little bit like Larry Clark's Kids or Ken Park but set in an almost dystopian Chinese society. Some scenes are extremely tough to watch, especially the last one with the toddler. Besieged City isn't for everyone as it will leave you drained and empty. It's not a happy story. It's not a happy ending. It's cold, uncaring, and probably more realistic than you would like it to be. It's worth a watch though. Just have something light-hearted as a palate cleanser afterwards. Check that. The Playgirls and the Vampire is a classic horror movie about a bunch of beautiful showgirls who end up getting in car trouble with their promoter and driver and end up seeking refuge in a large castle. Upon arriving in this castle, the owner, an eccentric nobleman, requests that no one comes out at night. Needless to say that neither the girls nor the men accompanying them listen to this rule and nasty things happen. The Playgirls and the Vampire is an enjoyable albeit old movie that will go exactly as you think it will go and then throws a little curveball for good measure. Despite it featuring exotic dancers, or as we like to call them now, strippers, it doesn't really have a lot of nudity and cannot be put in the sexploitation genre. This is mainly because it's a movie from 1960 where there still was some type of composure and decency. The story doesn't offer a lot of new stuff as mentioned, but it's still fun to see what happens. The acting and cinematography is typical for the era and a nice breather in comparison to some of the newer stuff. The Playgirls and the Vampire is a good campy black and white horror for a lazy Sunday. Have a Bloody Mary and eat some nuts or something while you're at it. Check that. City of Violence is a 2006 South Korean action movie that brings us yet another group of friends who will experience what time does to friendship. One of the friends, after chasing a few hoodlums, gets stabbed and killed and the four remaining friends decide to meet again at the funeral. When they realize that their friend got murdered, the friends decide to figure out who did it. And they probably won't like the answer. City of Violence is a typical South Korean action movie with a lot of violence and fighting. There's plenty of scenes where a few get surrounded by a group and they have to get out of it. The action is spectacular and the choreography to all of this is quite enjoyable. You won't have punches and kicks hit harder than in these Korean movies and our protagonists don't get out without a scratch either. City of Violence is another one of these movies in a long line of violent Asian films that you just have to have seen. It once again deals with loyalty, friendship, the passing of time and what happens to people over the course of their life as they want or gain power and wealth. It's not a happy movie but the fight scenes as mentioned are very cool, although sometimes a wee bit extravagant. At the end of the movie I did want to taste the beverage they decided to keep for over 2 decades, but alas I'll probably never have that opportunity. This is a cool revenge movie and if you don't believe me, all you need to know to convince you even more is that there's a Warriors reference in the movie. Come out to play, indeed. Go watch this. Check that. The Victim is a weird title for a kung fu movie, so I very much prefer Lightning Kung Fu. It's a Hong Kong martial arts comedy from 1980 about a guy who wants to have this other guy become his master. That guy of course isn't interested at all cause he has other stuff on his mind. Like his stepbrother chasing him cause he caught him raping his wife on his wedding night. Needless to say that these two souls form a reluctant friendship and do a lot of kicking and punching. Lightning Kung Fu is a great kung fu movie with some excellent fighting scenes. It's funny, it's endearing and it kicks ass. It's overall hailed as Sammo Kambo Hung's many masterpieces, though I cannot attest to the man's other movies yet. If you love kung fu movies and movies with fighting, check this out. If you love quirky Chinese humor, then check this out too. It's worth it alone for the ending in my opinion. Check that. driving movies with fast cars, rich people, bets, and dickheads breaking rules they can get out of by paying a fine and lifting their middle finger. They were popular during the 2000s. So popular we were inundated with loads of AM. Redline is one of these movies, the live-action one from 2007 that is. Not the Japanese animated and superior version with the same name that is completely unrelated from 2009. In 2007 Redline, a group of speed freaks hit the streets to win prizes. One of AM died and things got a little bit sour. Revenge is planned and that revenge is done by getting into a car and driving. Driving fast. There's a baddie who is a dick. There's a driver who is a dick. There's a hot chick who is dealing with her problems and tries to get her rock band somewhere. There's a lot of banter and Leo stuff and a lot of supposedly cool moves and scenes that make your eyes roll and cringe on the sofa. This movie is mediocre crap, ticking off the race movie cliches one by one in a lackluster and boring way. The action falls flat, the hotties aren't hot enough for some reason, the bling bling bullshit has gotten old and the rich wankers on portrayal should all be punched in the face. I didn't like this movie. There's other movies that are more fun. Even the first 5 Fast and the Furious are better than this dreck. Drop that. Blood Brothers, also known in Chinese as Gate of Heaven, is a Chinese gangster movie set in the 1930s about a couple of brothers leaving their small and quiet farm town to strike it big in Shanghai. There they are enlisted in the criminal underworld and have to do things they didn't quite expect. Kinda dumb in my opinion, but hey, you wouldn't have a movie otherwise, I guess. Needless to say that these brothers will at one point have to cross each other. Needless to say that there will be a love interest. Needless to say that this love interest is of course property of the big mob boss. Needless to say things will get complicated, violent, bloody. Loyalties will be tested, brotherhoods will break. Inspired by John Woo's classic Bullet in the Head, Blood Brothers is a competent gangster movie. It does the cliches right and looks beautiful, especially since everything is filmed quite dark and stark, playing with light and atmosphere so you can still see something despite it being, quite literally, a noir movie. Danielle Wu is charming as ever and the acting overall is pretty good. Blood Brothers isn't the best movie simply cause it looks and feels like other movies, but it's still a treat to watch for anyone who loves a good gangster flick about loyalty and brotherhood. Check that. A middle-aged woman who is stuck in a loving marriage discovers that she has a knack for puzzling. For her 50th birthday she gets a puzzle for a present and becomes hooked. She seeks out new puzzles and it becomes a wee bit of an obsession, putting some strain on her marriage. When she finds an ad for a tournament partner she gets involved with another puzzle fan. Puzzle is a very quaint but lovely Argentinian movie. There's no action. There's no severe drama, it's a peaceful, quiet, flowing movie about a woman trying to figure out her life. There are lovely analogies in the concept of a puzzle and how it works for her, her family and her life. How all different pieces fit together to become one coherent whole. How every person's life is a slow progress of adding pieces until you get something clear, hopefully a completed puzzle before the end of their life. Puzzle is a special movie, one I haven't seen many, if any, of that are similar. It's truly a delight and I didn't expect this at all. I expected drama, shouting matches, and other typical stuff, but there were not. I don't want to reveal too much of the movie, so I recommend going to watch this little gem as soon as possible. Smash that. The Gamers is a quaint but lovely independent movie about a bunch of nerds playing a Dungeons and Dragons campaign in their dorm. For anyone who ever played a tabletop role-playing game, it'll be quite the treat to see these people play characters badly and actually see them do it in the movie as their alter egos. There's discussion about rules, typical tropes of players wanting to play outside of their character and wanting to bang every single thing they encounter, and all kinds of goodies RPGers will recognize. Will they succeed in their quest to save the princess from the evil known as the Shadow? The Shadow? The Shadow. And will their friendship withstand bad die rolls? Rules. rules and regulations and time. The Gamers is a low-budget movie and it works. It works really well. Works like that episode of Community where they did the same. Something that was also done in the shitty Big Bang Theory where they completely missed the point. The Gamers is made by geeks for geeks and it's glorious. You can find the complete movie on YouTube, so you have no excuse not to watch it and the sequels. Smash that. The Gamers, Dorkness Rising is the second movie in the Gamers trilogy which brings back a couple of characters from the first movie. We are still playing the same fantasy setting where the evil known as the Shadow wreaks havoc across the realm. This time, however, a girl enters the fray and decides to play a character completely wrong. Or does she? What made this movie less enjoyable to me was the loudmouth fat guy who played a bard and loves to charm every sexy woman in the game into bed. Not due to this fact, mind you, cause that provided some very funny moments, but due to the fact that he's an asshole in real life. The movie version of real life, that is. Yelling and arguing about things which really got my blood boiling. Luckily it doesn't happen all too much and we are presented with yet another great role-playing movie that does it right. We get a little bit more time in the real world this time, giving us a little bit more to the real characters than the first movie did. Overall, Dorkness Rising is a great sequel to a good independent movie with a little bit more budget and a little bit grander scale. I guess you wonder what the third movie will bring to the table, right? Let's find out. Check that. The third installment in the Gamers trilogy, called Hands of Fate, drops the role-playing game shtick and moves on to collectible and other trading cards like magic in the form of the then fictional Romance of the Nine Empires, which later became a real game. This movie was kick-started, which is fine, but is filled with blatant advertising for several companies and features a lot of footage created in and around Gen Con. In this movie we follow one of the people from the previous film trying to get into the pants of a pretty lady, played by Drin Miller, over the course of a tournament. Unfortunately, Drin is quite the bitch in my opinion. Probably fueled by all the misogynistic dickheads who are in the scene all of a sudden. A stark contrast to a scene of the previous movie where a girl walks out of the store only to be stared at by dumbfounded awkward nerds. Here they openly yell stuff at her. Realistic or not, I don't really care. It annoyed me, and there's more stuff in this iteration that feels like all the woke crap we have been seeing in many movies, series and other over the past 5 years. Made in 2013, however, this is probably one of the areas where it started. Moving away from the role-playing aspect kinda works, but mixing it with LARPing and some kind of gameplay feature where the players decide the future doesn't work at all. Seeing some actors stand on a Gen Con stage and act at a probably real crowd doesn't feel right. A lot of it doesn't feel right, and then you get a big egg board pop up as if we're on some YouTuber's channel walking around the con. The main thing is that it lost a little bit of the charm it had from the previous movies. In a way this reflects reality, I guess, where a fairly niche game, or other underground stuff, all of a sudden becomes mainstream, bringing in dickheads and assholes who want to change everything and ruin it for all. This storyline happens in the movie, it happened with the movie, and it happened in real life. All in all, this third installment isn't my favorite, and it's a far cry from the previous. It's okay for completionists, but it tarnished me a little bit on the Gamers. Oh, by the way, the Shadow still appears in the movie in a half-assed kind of way. Ah well, Drin Miller is nice to look at though. That's something. Drop that.